Welcome back to Reality News, where we uncover the most shocking and untold stories behind your favorite reality stars. Jenny Slatin leaving India. Jenny arrested at the airport. Yes, you heard that right. What you're about to hear is a story no one expected. For years, fans have followed the story of Jenny Slatin and Sumit Singh on 90 Day Fiancé. What we were shown looked like a love story against all odds. A 31-year age gap, cultural barriers, family opposition, a woman who gave up everything for love, and a man who fought his family to be with her. But what if none of that was real? What if the story never started as love at all? What if it began with a fake Facebook profile named Michael Jones, created not by accident, but as part of something much bigger? What if Jenny and Sumit were never the ones in control, but were instead pieces in a long, carefully planned scheme? We went deeper than anyone else. We spoke to people close to the situation and put together a timeline that paints a very different picture. The story we were shown may have been a distraction from what was really happening behind the scenes. Before we get into it, if you're tired of fake drama and want the truth behind reality TV, subscribe and turn on notifications. This is Viva Flix M, where we don't just recap shows, we expose the real script. Like this video to support the channel, because what you're about to hear could change everything you think you know about Jenny and Sumit. Let's start where the official story begins. In 2011, we're told that Sumit Singh was a lonely 23-year-old working in a call center in Delhi, stuck in an unhappy arranged marriage. According to the show, he created a fake Facebook profile named Michael Jones just to escape his reality. But our sources say this wasn't random or innocent. They say this was step one of a planned operation. Michael Jones wasn't an escape. He was bait, and he was designed to attract a very specific kind of person. We're told Sumit wasn't acting alone. His family, especially his father Anil, was worried about Sumit's future and lack of progress. But instead of pushing him to follow tradition, the pressure was to find opportunity. Our theory is that the family supported the creation of Michael Jones. They saw an opportunity in lonely Western women who had steady income and emotional vulnerability. The goal wasn't a quick scam, it was a long game. They were looking for someone older, financially stable, emotionally attached, possibly divorced, and dreaming of a new life. Someone who would ignore warning signs because she wanted the fantasy to be real. That person was Jenny Slatin, a 58-year-old woman living in Palm Springs, surviving on a small pension. She was the perfect target. Michael Jones spent months building a dream for her, romance, attention, and a life completely different from the one she had. Jenny fell deeply in love with someone who didn't exist. In 2013, Jenny sold everything she owned and flew to India to meet her English boyfriend. On the show, Sumit's confession at a Starbucks in New Delhi is shown as a moment of panic and guilt. He admits he lied about his identity and begs for forgiveness. Jenny forgives him almost immediately, and this moment becomes the foundation of their love story. But our sources believe something very different happened. They believe this wasn't a confession, it was a test. When Jenny arrived, the people behind the plan realized the fake identity couldn't continue. What mattered wasn't the lie, but whether Jenny would forgive it. Her forgiveness showed that she was already emotionally trapped. By forgiving Sumit, Jenny proved she was willing to accept a broken version of the fantasy just to keep it alive. That forgiveness made her the perfect long-term investment. This moment is treated as romantic on the show, but behind the scenes, it changed everything. During that first trip, Jenny and Sumit became physically involved, which deepened her emotional attachment. This made it even harder for her to walk away later. From that point on, leaving would mean admitting everything she sacrificed was for nothing. Publicly, the family acted like Jenny was just an online friend. Privately, they knew she was now tied to them. Next came the obstacle, the secret arranged marriage. On TV, Sumit is shown as a man trapped by tradition and family pressure. But our theory suggests the marriage wasn't a problem. It was a tool. The marriage created the perfect excuse to keep Jenny waiting. He could say he loved her but couldn't be with her yet. It kept her emotionally invested while delaying any real commitment. It also created drama. And drama is exactly what reality TV needs. According to our findings, around this time, Anil Singh began paying attention to American reality TV. The story had everything: a massive age gap, catfishing, a secret marriage, cultural conflict, and emotional tension. It was perfect television. By 2019, Jenny sold her home and moved permanently to India, believing she was making the ultimate sacrifice for love. In reality, she was stepping into a situation that had already been shaped for cameras. Once filming began, everything escalated. Sumit's mother, Sadhna, became a central figure. On screen, her anger and emotional reactions were intense and unforgettable. Viewers saw a mother terrified of losing her son. But people close to production noticed something unusual. Off camera, she was calm and controlled. The extreme reactions appeared only when filming was happening. The conflict seemed to turn on and off like a switch. Gino Palacio was arrested at the airport. Welcome to Reality News, where we uncover the real story behind reality TV. What you're about to hear isn't a recap, it's an investigation. We've spoken with insider sources, examined legal documents, and pieced together details the show left out. The divorce between Gino and Jasmine is more complicated than it looks. Beneath the surface, there's a web of legal issues, revenge, and financial risks that could destroy one of them. This is more than a breakup, it's a battle. At the center is a little-known Michigan law that turns the separation into a serious legal challenge. The drama wasn't just emotional, it was strategic. Conflict kept the story alive. Happy couples don't get renewed. Families that were due. Her most dramatic moments became turning points for the show, driving ratings, online debates, and season renewals. The family's resistance became the engine of the storyline. While Jenny believed her future was hanging by a thread, the family appeared to be playing specific roles. The father remained quiet and serious. The brother stood united with the parents. Sumit stayed in the middle, torn but sympathetic. Unfortunately, there was also the daughter-in-law training. It was shown as the family's last-ditch effort to either break Jenny or make her fit in. They stayed for a month at Jenny and Sumit's tiny apartment. Observers saw Jenny, a former professional housekeeper, forced to use a traditional broom to sweep, grind spices by hand, and wake up early for prayers. Her discomfort was clear, and the audience felt sympathy for her. But was the training really the point? Or was it meant to make her look foolish on camera? Our theory is that this scene was staged with two purposes. First, it created content that would make viewers laugh and cry, highlighting the cultural differences. Second, it set up Jenny's public image as incompetent, hinting at problems in the relationship before they even happened. By showing her struggling with basic household tasks, the family laid the groundwork for Jenny to later appear as the antagonist. Small gestures, like Anil paying a minor electricity bill or Sanaa smiling at pancakes, were not genuine. They were carefully scripted to make the family seem more complex and less obviously harsh. The story needed a climax. With constant visa issues and work pressures, a wedding became inevitable. The family pretended to resist, but it was actually a strategic win. Despite Jenny's disappointment, the first stage of the plan was completed in November 2021 with a modest $200 temple wedding. After this, Jenny could no longer be excluded from the show because her wedding granted her permanent residency in India. This satisfied longtime fans and set up a new storyline, a happy couple facing the pressures of an unhappy family. The family had not lost, they had launched the next chapter of their plan successfully. After the wedding, the focus of manipulation shifted. A previous debate about marriage was resolved, and the next focus became money. According to the official story, Jenny and Sumit mismanaged their TV earnings. Their hope for a secure future seemed to disappear as their savings ran out. Our theory goes further. Instead of being wasted, the money was allegedly taken. Anil, as patriarch, supposedly managed Sumit's show earnings and used cultural traditions as an excuse to take control of the funds. This created a staged financial crisis. This achieved several goals. First, it provided new drama for the show, since money problems are always engaging for reality TV. Second, it pushed Jenny and Sumit to their limits, forcing them into risky and poorly planned decisions. One example was their cafe venture. Mixing American diner food with Indian street food was doomed to fail. but it produced entertaining TV filled with arguments, tension, and embarrassment. The family may have even anticipated the failure to drain Jenny and Sumit's last independence. When Jenny and Sumit's cafe went bankrupt, they had nothing left. Jenny's $1,200 monthly Social Security payment wasn't enough to support them. They were financially dependent, exhausted, and desperate. The final step of the trap was set. Moving in with Sanaa and Anil, giving up their independence, appeared painful, but the family had won. Their long game was complete. Sumit and his American wife were now living under the family's roof, fully relying on them financially and controlled by them in every way. The family dictated their meals, conversations, and daily life. The daughter-in-law training's earlier scenes now made sense. Jenny, who had been praised for her strength and sacrifices, was now framed as lazy, clumsy, and resistant to change. Sanaa's constant criticism, once seen as nagging, was now justified on screen. Jenny appeared stressed and exhausted, especially during cooking mishaps. The audience's sympathy began to fade. People started questioning why she hadn't improved. This was intentional. The villain edit had begun. With the family controlling finances, they started a psychological campaign against Jenny in front of the cameras. She had become the problem in the story. The goal was to make her seem ungrateful and lazy, causing viewers to turn against her. Jenny's behavior changed as the public's opinion shifted. Feeling trapped in a foreign country and constantly undermined, she began acting out. Scenes showed her calling Sumit names like loser and child. In a high-pressure, emotionally abusive environment, such reactions are predictable. But without context, the audience thought she was the abuser. The narrative had flipped. The victim was now portrayed as the villain. The family framed her as weaponizing Sumit's past sacrifices while omitting the constant pressure she endured. They set up a self-fulfilling prophecy. Create a situation where she would snap, record it, and then use it to prove her instability. Even the financial crisis was made more public with cameo videos and online fundraisers. This made Jenny appear desperate and dependent, reinforcing the storyline. What had been a strong, independent woman was now depicted as pitiful. Every move she made was part of a strategy she didn't know she was in. She was living in a controlled environment, with the cameras acting as walls and her family as guards. What should have been a hopeful trip to India became a nightmare, one everyone thought was her fault. Turning Sumit against her was the final piece. He had been her ally in the battle against his family, but under their roof, financially and socially controlled, he began to revert to the submissive child he had been raised to be. Aligning with his parents became simple. Admit that Jenny was the problem. Once Sumit began siding with his family, Jenny's isolation grew. She had left everything behind in the U.S., her home, her friends, her routines. She had sacrificed her independence, thinking it was for love. But now every choice, every word, every action was being controlled, judged, and recorded. She was no longer just a participant in a relationship. She was a character in a story she didn't write. The cameras captured every struggle, every failure, and every moment of frustration. From burning a simple meal to fumbling with household chores, each clip reinforced the narrative the family had created. To viewers, it appeared as if Jenny was incapable of adapting. In reality, she was being placed in a pressure cooker environment where mistakes were inevitable. The family's psychological game was working perfectly. Sumit, once her partner in rebellion, now subtly enforced the rules. His previous support became a quiet form of control. He reminded her to follow schedules, adhere to family expectations, and defer to parental authority. To outsiders, it looked like he was growing distant or controlling. But behind the scenes, it was a survival tactic. He had learned which side of the family to align with to maintain his own stability. Jenny, isolated and exhausted, began to feel the weight of this betrayal. Financial control added another layer of manipulation. With the family managing their funds, Jenny had no access to resources that would allow her to act independently. The small income she brought from Social Security was barely enough to cover basic needs. Any attempt to start a personal project, like the cafe, had already failed under the family's watchful eyes. Every step toward independence was blocked, creating a sense of helplessness. The combination of public scrutiny, family control, and financial dependency caused Jenny to act in ways that would further the family's narrative. On screen, she seemed frustrated, harsh, and overly critical of Sumit. Her words were clipped, sharp, and filled with tension. But without context, audiences saw only anger and aggression. Slowly, the public perception of her shifted from sympathetic heroine to difficult, even abusive, wife. Meanwhile, the family maintained the illusion of care. Small gestures, helping with household tasks, offering advice, or cooking a meal, were presented as acts of goodwill. But every act was strategic, designed to reinforce Jenny's dependence while appearing compassionate to the viewers. It was a delicate balance. The family needed to appear relatable, yet maintain control. The psychological pressure intensified as the cameras followed them. Jenny was constantly aware of being watched, adding stress to already high tensions. The knowledge that every reaction could be broadcast and scrutinized magnified minor conflicts into dramatic scenes. Every mistake, every argument, and every sigh became content. What viewers saw as personal failures were carefully staged elements of a larger plan. Sumit, now fully aligned with his parents, contributed to this pressure. He enforced the rules, reminded Jenny of her obligations, and subtly isolated her from external support. His transformation was gradual but complete. The couple that once seemed united against the family now appeared fractured and contentious. Jenny's responses were natural under extreme stress, irritation, defensiveness, and emotional outbursts. Yet each response was captured and edited to fit the narrative the producers wanted. Lines were repeated, moments stretched, and scenes recontextualized. Over time, the show created a clear storyline. Jenny, the outsider, struggled to adapt to Indian life, while the Singh family, though strict, remained steadfast and reasonable. This narrative had a powerful effect on the audience. Fans who had once rooted for Jenny began questioning her choices. Comments shifted from sympathy to criticism. The perception of her as a loving, independent woman eroded, replaced by frustration and doubt. It was a classic reality TV reversal. The hero becomes the villain, and the audience is manipulated without knowing it. The family's ultimate goal was total control, financially, emotionally, and publicly. By keeping Jenny dependent, shaping public opinion, and isolating her from support, they ensured that she could never challenge the narrative. Every public fight, every personal failure, and every tear on camera served to reinforce their control. Even when Jenny tried to push back, the results were predictable. Her resistance was framed as stubbornness, her complaints as ingratitude, and her attempts at independence as reckless. Each failure was amplified for content, each victory minimized. Over time, she became trapped not just in her environment, but in the story itself. Meanwhile, the family's long-term strategy continued. By controlling the narrative and Jenny's resources, they maintained leverage over Sumit as well. While he had aligned with them, his loyalty was secured through shared interests and the same psychological tactics applied to Jenny. The show portrayed him as torn between two worlds, but in reality, he was steadily brought into the family's sphere of control. This dynamic created endless drama for the cameras. Arguments, frustrations, and emotional confrontations were captured in high definition, edited for maximum effect, and presented as genuine conflict. Audiences were unaware of the careful orchestration behind the scenes. Every scene was a chess move in a game where the family, not the couple, was in control. Even simple moments of domestic life were weaponized. Cooking failures, disagreements over chores, and misunderstandings were all turned into content. Jenny's attempts to adjust were deliberately set up to fail, reinforcing the narrative that she was incapable of functioning within the household. The audience saw struggle. The family saw proof that their plan was working. Financial dependence played a critical role in maintaining this control. With all major earnings managed by Anil, Jenny and Sumit were forced to comply with the family's rules. Any attempt to regain autonomy was met with logistical or cultural obstacles. This dependency ensured that the family's narrative remained unchallenged, both on and off screen. Over time, The psychological pressure reached a point where Jenny's behavior increasingly aligned with the family's desired narrative. Her frustrations became more visible, her words harsher, and her public demeanor less sympathetic. The editing reinforced this, creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. The audience saw the behavior the family wanted them to see, which reinforced the story in a cycle that